Smoky little thing. Where are you going? At least point your wheels forwards and not at me.
Good morning everybody, Calm Biker here, and what a lovely morning. Rain forecast for this afternoon, so I'm going to try and beat it, but right now just a few little fluffy clouds here and there, so I'm out on a mission. Mrs. Calm is practicing for a theory test for driving, not for motorbikes unfortunately, but you know, maybe I'll convince her in a couple of years when she's had a bit of time in a car to try out a bike. She seems to enjoy being on the back of it, so I would imagine once she's been driving for a while she'll probably want that control anyway. So while she's doing that, I thought I'll come out for a ride. Two missions. One is that I'm going to do a bit of practice riding for my IAM. I had my 5th IAM ride the other night and it didn't go very well. I thought it went alright actually, but the observer has said that they're now getting nitpicky, so every single little error gets a point knocked off, which meant on the scale of 1 to 4, the old 1 being excellent, 4 being unsatisfactory, I've got a few 3s again now, quite a few 2s and a few 1s, mainly 1s and 2s, but you know, quite a few 3s, 4 or 5 of them, so I need to sort that out because of the nitpickiness, and apparently the nitpickiness is more nitpickery than the examiner will be, so if I can get that one better, then I should be in a good place for doing the test. But I got picked up the other night quite a bit for not going fast enough round bends. Now, my reasoning, or probably excuse, was it was quite tricky to see in a lot of the bends where I went too slow because the sun was so low and right ahead of me. But either way, practice required. They don't like you going under the speed limit unless it's not safe to do the speed limit, so we'll go and do a bit of practice. And mission 2, I have a batch of motorbike community leaflets underneath my seat. If you don't know about motorbike community, well, I'm sure you will do by now because loads of vloggers talking about it, and I think I've mentioned it once or twice. Motorbike community was born out of BHB.net's failure. So BHB, Bikers Helping Bikers, was a wonderful idea where it was a website where you could go and you could find other bikers to help you with things, be it going on ride outs, tips on riding for, I think that's where it started actually, was the more experienced riders offering to give tips to newer riders, but also helping you out if you had a mechanical issue, or you know, you wanted to put a new exhaust on like I do, all those kind of things, to be able to find other bikers. And it was all coming along really well, and then it all kind of went horribly wrong around the time of the launch, which was a real shame. So what happened was, Kev, the infamous biker, who, if you're not subscribed to him, go have a look, he's a great channel, although you might be disgusted by some of his army stories and the way that he treats other people's beds might put you off a little bit, but great guy Kev, good friend. He's the guy who was responsible with me for organising the infamously calm ride out. Now Kev decided he was going to set up a community site because he thought there really was a market for one. It's not really the right word, but I'm sure you know what I mean. It's not a market because it's all free, you know, there's no costs involved in joining the community or anything. So he set up a community site, I nearly said Bikers Helping Bikers, Motorbike Community it's called, nice simple name to remember, motorbikecommunity.com, and pretty much you can do everything that BHB was going to do, and it's all about I suppose it's a community site. There's a bit of Facebook style social networking in there. Can't be doing with that myself, but you know, I understand that some people like that kind of thing. And there's what else is there? There's a map of members, so you can organise ride outs, find people. There's events pages. Really good site, so well worth a look. And I've got a whole bunch of flyers, and I'm going to pop down to the motorbike shop first and see if I can leave a few there at the Intergear. I'll bleep that out if they don't let me. And also going to go to Fimber Cafe, and I'll bleep that one out as well if they don't let me. But that's part of the route I did the other night, so we'll see if I can leave a few there, and hopefully get him a few more members on his site, because you know it's good. And all while Mrs. Calm practices her theory test. I've got a bit of a grumble with the theory test, because I was helping her out with the practice, and she was complaining that she was failing on the whatchamacallit, the hazard awareness. If you've never done it, because you didn't need to, because obviously it was relatively recently they brought these things in, on the hazard awareness part of the theory test, you get shown a lot of video clips. I think there's about 14. I think it's 14, and there's 15 developing hazards. And what you have to do is click the mouse on these videos when you see the developing hazard. There'll be one on each clip. One clip has 2 of them, and you've got about 5 seconds or something in which to click the mouse. And if you click it right at the beginning of that 5 seconds, when it's, you know, the hazard is first starting to develop, then you score 5, and if you click it right at the end, you only score 1, and you can score obviously 2, 3 or 4 in between there. And then you have to get a certain number of points. This junction, they've made a real mess of it. You've got to get a certain number of points to pass, and if you don't get enough, then you fail the whole theory test. Now the problem I've got with it is, if you're 16 or 17 and you're just doing your driving test or your bike test and you've got no experience on the road, it's probably a really good test. If you are of Mrs. C's age, and she won't want me to tell you, you know how old I am, she's younger than me. So if you're in your 30s and you've got a bit of experience of the road from, you know, driving around with other people and all that kind of stuff, going on the back of a bike, then I think it's hopeless. So I found a site last night that actually showed you your results, not just as a number of how well you did, but also showed you a timeline for the clip that you could play back, and where it saw the hazard developing and where it said that the hazard was a possible hazard but not developing, so you were clicking too early. And about a third of the clips I clicked too early, and I think this is a really big problem, because if you've got any experience of the roads, you can see hazards developing well before they think they are developing. So for example, there was one the other night, and it was a bus in a bus stop, and it indicated and started to roll forward, so I clicked, and then about 5 seconds later it actually pulled across into lane 2, and they said that until it was actually entering lane 2 it wasn't a hazard developing. But if you are a seasoned road user, seasoned motorist, then to you the hazard's developing as soon as that bus has indicated and started pulling out into your lane, because in the clip you started in lane 1 and actually moved to lane 2 to go around the bus. You know, that's a hazard developing as soon as that bus starts to move, and yet you get 0 points for that. So I think that hazard perception test is pretty hopeless. I have to say, I think the other part of the test is pretty hopeless too, because some of the questions are pathetic. There was one that I was reading to her the other night, one of the practice questions, and I read it because it was one that I believe has actually come up in people's tests, because they've mentioned it to me. And it was something along the lines of, you're pulling away in snow what should you do? A, choose the highest gear possible. B, choose the lowest gear possible. Now those two things, they kind of make sense. You can see how you might choose those. C, rev the engine very high before pulling away. Well, when do you ever do that? And D, apply the handbrake and foot brake at the same time. What? Now if the questions are that easy and that ridiculous, I mean there was one about being stuck behind somebody who's not moving, and it's shouting out the window is one of the answers. I mean, what? One about if you're lost, what should you do? You're lost on a motorway, on a dual carriageway with no parking. What should you do? A, pull over and ask pedestrians for help. Well, it's no parking, no stopping. B, pull into a side road and check a map. Makes sense. C was keep moving with the flow of the traffic and shout to other road users to ask them the way. I mean, come on. So yeah, something's not quite right with that test. It seems to me like it's just a handy way of getting another 20 quid off you to do that one. And compared to the theory test that I did when I learnt to drive, obviously I've done the theory test for the bike and I've done the theory test for driving, and the theory test for the car was a lot better because you did your whole test with the examiner, and then when you got to they're all miserable buggers, aren't they, them lot? When you got to the test centre at the end, they then started asking you questions, and they'd looked at your driving and they knew where any mistakes, any small mistakes might have been, and they asked you questions that were a bit more searching than, choose A, B, C or D, and you had no chance of guessing. So I remember one that a friend of mine had, and she told us about it, and she said, the question that the examiner asked was, when you're indicating right at a roundabout, who are you indicating to? And there's no A, B, C or D, so you actually have to think about the thing. You're not just eliminate a couple that are stupid. You're indicating to low-flying aircraft and voles, and you're left with two more. She actually had to think about it. It was really well done, and she said it actually made her think, and it made her realise things about driving that were a little bit further than what you learnt on the test. The answer to that, by the way, she said, well, you're indicating to people behind you to tell them which way you're going, and the examiner said yes, and she said, well, you're indicating to people on the roundabout already, and he said yes, and she said, well, you're indicating to people who might be wanting to enter the roundabout, and he said yes, and he said, you're indicating to pedestrians who might want to cross the road at the exit of a roundabout, and he went yes, and he kept saying yes and until he was happy that she knew that essentially you're indicating to everybody who can see you. And she passed. She didn't fail the test, but it meant that she actually had to have a bit of a think about what she was saying. I think that's far better. I think they should bring that back. Forget about your extra 17 or 20 quid, whatever it is that they give the government for that, and actually bring back the examiner asking you questions at the end of your test for 5 minutes, because that's far better. What do you lot think? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I'm going to go and deliver these leaflets now. So I've been wittering on for long enough. So, ride safe, and I'll talk to you all again soon.